Alrighty, this is going to be a demonstration on how to put together the Porsche brochure that I demonstrated in class. We're going to basically put together 2 pages. And by the way, if you hear some construction in the background, that's my neighbor getting her bathroom done. So I apologize for that. But anyway, I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. This is basically going to be used as a reference. We did this in class, but in case you need to come back and reference this, this video is available. It will be on YouTube, and I'll go through it step by step. We're going to create 2 pages of this document. Now, this is a 6-page document. But I think only 2 pages are needed to get you to understand kind of the gist of how to create an interactive document with buttons and animation. Okay, so with that, let's get started. And I'm going to share my screen. And here we are in InDesign with the finished file. Now, here's an example of the finished file. As I open up the pages here, you'll see that this is a 6-page document. Page 1 is the cover. Then we have page 2, which is the Carrera car, the Carrera 4S, or the Carrera 4, the Carrera S, the Carrera 4S, and then the back cover. The 2 pages that we'll be constructing are the Carrera page and the Carrera 4 page. And we're going to do this from scratch. So let's get started. Now, the very first thing that you're going to have to do is load the fonts that we're going to use. Now, if you're on a Mac, the fonts that we're using are Myriad Pro, regular, and condensed, and those are native fonts on a Macintosh computer. However, the other font that we're going to use, this 911 here, is Chunk 5. And that is a font that was downloaded from defont.com, so you're going to have to download that font, Chunk 5. And then you're going to have to load it into your fonts system, into your system fonts folder, whether you're on a PC or a Mac. If you're on a Mac, it's called FontBook. If you're on a PC, I'm not sure what the font management application is, but load in Chunk 5. And then you'll have everything that you need. Now, if you have the zip file that I sent you in class and you open it up, under document fonts, you'll see all of those fonts listed here, Chunk 5, Myriad Pro, all of the ones that we're going to use in this. So I would just shift select all of these and then just drag them into your fonts application, and you'll be good to go. Okay, so once you do that, then the first thing you're going to do is open up a fresh new file. So we're going to go to File, New Document, and we're going to open up a 8.5 by 11 landscape pages. You will not click, I think by default facing pages is selected, so unselect facing pages. The amount of pages that you're going to create, and I'm just going to create the 6 pages, but I'm not going to fill all 6. I'm only going to fill 2 of them. But let's create it as if this was the full brochure. So I'm going to create 6 pages, and I'm going to leave everything as the default, half-inch margins and 1 column and so forth. Make sure that you're in inches and not picas, okay? I think it defaults to picas, so make sure that you're in inches. And then once you do that, go ahead and create those 6 pages, okay? You should have a document that looks like this with pages 1 through 6 all aligned underneath each other. And that's because you unclicked facing pages. Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do is now I'm in the digital publishing palette configuration here. I think the default is Essentials. We've been using Essentials Classic in school, but in class, but let's go to digital publishing. This is where your pages palette is. This is where your links palette and layers palette is. And layers are the first thing that we're going to want to go to, this palette here, and we're going to create 3 layers. So I'm going to go down here and select this twice. The very first layer I'm going to name typography. The second layer I'm going to name images. And the third layer I'm going to name background. Okay, so we have 3 layers that we're working with in this document. We're going to put all the type on the type layer, all the images or photographs on the images layer, and the background layer is going to be this black box here, this big long rectangular black box. And then we're going to lock this background layer so that we don't move it. Okay, so I have this finished brochure up here in this tab that I'll be referencing. So I'll be going back and forth and giving type sizes and measurements and so forth. So the first thing we want to look at in this is we want to look at the width of this black box, and we can see that it's about a little shy of 3.5 inches. So I want to put a guideline here, and I'm also going to put a guideline here on this right edge of this photo, a guideline, vertical guidelines to kind of give us a structure of where we're going to put things. Okay, so let's go back to our document. Now, before we even start, a good thing to do is to save your document as a name. So that'll be the second thing I do, is go up to Save. And I'm going to save this. I will save this on the desktop, but you'll save this in your main hard drive. I'm going to call this the Porsche demo. And I want to save this document as to the desktop here, you can see. So I will save it. And you can see that that document is saved on my desktop over here. Okay, so now that I have it saved, you can see right here that it says porschedemo.indd. I'm going to read over to the right, and I'm going to put a vertical guide right there. So let me go back to our document. I'm going to bring a guide out of the ruler, and here's 3.5. So I'm going to just kind of do it a little shy of that. I'm going to select our background layer because that's where I want that rectangular box to go. And then I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a box that is the depth of the page. And I'm going to come over to my swatches palette, which is over here. You can see that comes out. And the outline of that is none, and the fill of that is going to be black. Okay. So we have our black square or rectangle. I'm now going to go up to the pages palette or the layers palette, I'm sorry, and lock the background layer so that we can't move it. Right? So I have, now if I hit my W key and turn off all the guides, this is what I have. Okay, and that represents this box over here. Okay, let's bring over some other guides, and I'm going to go over here, and if I bring in some guides here, I can see that this guide is about at 5 and, it looks like about 5 3/4 up here. If we read up here, it's 5 3/4. And then if I drag this guide over here, we could say that that's about at a little over 8 inches. Okay, so let's try that first to start with. 5 3/4. So I'm going to bring a guide over to 5 3/4 and drop it right there. Let's put this down here. Oh, I need to click on a different layer because this is locked, so nothing happens. Okay, so I'm on the images layer. I'll bring this over at 5 3/4, roughly there. Bring another one over at a little over 8, I think it was. Okay, let me just double check that. This guide here is, yeah, a little over 8. Okay, so this guide and this guide are fine. And that will kind of give us an idea of where this photo stops and where these photos are going to sit. Now let me bring down some horizontal guides. And I can see that this guide here is roughly at about 3 1/4 inches. And this guide here is about at 5 1/2 inches. Okay, so 3 1/4 inches. I'm going to come down here. Bring that down to about 3 1/4 inches there. I think it was 3 1/4. Yeah, 3 1/4. And then I'm going to bring this other one down to about 5 1/2, right there. Okay. And see this box right here? This kind of tells us now about the width of that long photo. Okay, and then we got our 2 other photos that are going to go roughly in here. We have our car that's going to sit up here. We have some text that's going to go in here, our legend down here, and then some other copy that is going to fit down there. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is let's set up this type box here. And I'm going to go to images because that's the layer that we want it to be on. And let's set a text box. I'm going to go over to my text tool. And I'm going to draw a text box that's about this size. And then let's fill that text with some placeholder text. First of all, let's see what size this text is. And we can see that it's Myriad Pro 9/Auto. Okay, 9/Auto Myriad Pro condensed. Okay, it's also in white. So let's go over here and let's set this up to Myriad Pro. Okay, and we'll set it up to condensed. We'll set it up to 9 points over auto. Okay, auto. And then we'll make the text color, open up the swatches palette and make the text color white. Okay. And so now when I go to type and I fill it with placeholder text, you'll see that that comes in as white text, Myriad Pro condensed. Okay. And now I'm going to, I think we have a little bit more text than we need. So let me delete some of this text here. Okay. And what I'm going to do here now is go up to, let me zoom in here a little bit. I'm going to go up to the first line here, get my cursor here, and hit return. And above this, I'm going to type in, I think it said Carrera 911 Carrera. Okay, so we'll type in 911 Carrera. And we're going to make that Myriad Pro bold condensed. So I'll go to bold condensed. And I believe the typeface on that was, let me just double check real quick. That was 12/Auto. Okay, so we'll go here and we'll make this 12/Auto. And I'll make it red. Okay, so we have something that looks like that. Command 0 to back out. Hit my W key, and that's what we have. And that's good enough for, this demonstration. I know it doesn't look exactly like this, but this is broken up into paragraphs. This is actual copy here. If you look at it, it actually says what it's supposed to say. But in our case, in the demo, what we're going to do is we're just going to use this. Oops. Let me just get back to this here. we're just going to use this here. If I work too fast, some weird things happen. Yeah, like this. So let's make sure that we refresh this here. Oh, don't know why this is all getting weird like that, but let's see why this is happening. Hold on just a sec. I'm going to stop. Pause this for a minute and see why. Let me just pause this recording. Okay, sorry about that. Let me go back and continue on. Okay, so here we are. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to throw in these 3 photos. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to File and Place, and I'm going to go to my folder that this is in, and it is under on my computer. It is here. And I will go to Assignments and Porsche folder and Links. Okay. So the 3 photos that we're going to put in are the 3 Carrera photos. And that is one of them. And that is another. And I believe, let's see, Carrera Large, Carrera Cockpit, and Carrera Interior, which is Carrera Large, Carrera Cockpit, and Carrera Interior. Where is that? Carrera Seats. Okay. Yeah, this is in order, so it's kind of hard. So let me first go to the Carrera Large, and I'm going to click Open. And my loaded up icon is here. I'm going to click and drag it to this width. Okay, and there's the photo. Now I'm going to do some cropping here. So I'm going to crop down on this a little bit just so that it fits. I'm going to bring this up to my guide, and I'm going to bring this up here and lock this in. So that is there. Okay, if I hit my W key, here is my first photo. My second photo is going to go right around here with some space in between. So again, I'll go to File and Place, and I will look for that second photo, which is going to be Carrera Cockpit, and click Open. And I'm going to click and drag this. Okay, now I know it looks a lot bigger than it's supposed to be, but I'm going to crop in on this and crop in on this. And then move this over and stick it right there with about that much space in between. Okay, so there's my second photo. And then lastly, I'm going to go to File and Place, and I'm going to find that Carrera Seats. Okay, which is right there. I'm going to click Open, and I'm going to click and drag this in to about there. I'm going to obviously crop this down, maybe crop this over, and then put this about there. Here's my guide here, so yeah, somewhere around there. Okay, so these 3 photos are in. Now I'm going to bring in the car. So let's go to, again, File, Place, and I'm going to go grab that Carrera car, which is there, and I'll click Open, and I'm going to click and drag it to about the size that, about the width that it should be. And so there it is. Okay, do some cropping, bring this up, bring this down, and move this up a little bit. I want to maintain the shadow here, so I don't want to crop it up too far. And here is the car. Okay. So next, I am going to put in these 2 blocks of copy underneath here. So let me bring a guide over and stick it right there, okay, to align that. And let me bring a guide down and stick it about right there so that this space and this space are about the same. Okay. I'm going to grab my text tool and I'm going to draw a text box. Actually, instead of doing that, if we go over here and we look at this text is the same font and size as this. This word cockpit is a little bit smaller than 911 Carrera, but we're going to borrow the text from here. Instead of making a new text box, we're just going to grab this text here, hold my Option key down, and I'm going to click and drag it over here. Now all this text is in white and the background is white, so we can't see anything. But if I take my text tool and I highlight everything, I'm going to just for now turn it into black so that we can see it. Get on my, okay. And I'm going to delete some of this copy because this is all placeholder copy anyway. And then I'm going to make this text box a little shorter. Okay, so we have something like this. Now I'm going to make this smaller. Instead of 12 point, I believe it was 9 point, bold. And it said the cockpit. So we'll just replace that text with the cockpit. And then this text here was in gray or black at about 50% black. So we'll just make that about 50% so it ends up gray. Okay, so that looks good. And I'm going to bring this text box in so it aligns with this photo edge here. Now, I'm going to hold my Option key down, click and drag a copy of this over here. And now I'm just, if we go back to our original, this one says Timeless Comfort with a little bit less text. So I'm going to just type in Timeless Comfort. And I'll take away some of this text here. And we'll do something like, maybe not that much, but how about like around that much there. Okay. And then if I hit my W key, this is what we have. And I think this photo is a little bit too wide, so I'm going to bring this in a little bit. Move this over. And maybe pull this out a little bit there. Okay, so that, see, I want to make sure that this space and this space are the same. And that is kind of what we have going underneath these photos. Now, obviously, if this were for real, this would actually be text that you would have to type in. Maybe the client supplied that to you or what. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is put the text up here. If you notice, it says, from 98,400 manufacturer's retail suggested price. Okay, and if we look at the typeface size of this type is 8 points and this type is 10 points, and they're both in gray. So let's borrow again this text. We're going to borrow it from here. I'm going to hold the Option key down, click and drag this up. And then I'm going to highlight this and type in manufacturers. What did it say? Manufacturers retail suggested price or suggested retail price. Manufacturers should say suggested retail price. And then this would say from 98,400. Wow. This is going to be 10 points. And this is going to be 8 points. And they're both going to be in black with a 50% tint of gray. There we go. And we're going to take this text and put it right about there. Okay, so we have that going. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put the 911 and the word Carrera right here. So let's do that. Before I do that, I'm going to do a quick Command S to save so I don't lose anything. I'm going to grab my text tool and I'm going to click and drag a text box and just type in 911. I'm going to highlight this and make it chunk 5. So let's look for chunk 5, which is right there. And what size was that? Let's see, that was chunk 5 and 122 points. Okay, so let's go over here and make this 122 points. 122 and click OK. Now the reason we can't see it is because it's too big for our text box. So I have to open up the text box. I'm going to highlight this and reduce the tracking of this, tighten it up to -10, -20, -30, -40. Let's make it -50, okay, real nice and tight. We're going to make this in 50% gray. All right. And then we're going to rotate this. And the way we rotate it is we drag our cursor to the corner until we see that curved cursor. And then I'm going to hold the Shift key down and click and drag up and flip it exactly, I think it's 45 degrees. Okay, and then I'm going to just click and position this right around there for now. Okay, so that's done. And then I'm going to click and copy this. So I'm going to hold the Option key down, copy this, bring this over here for a sec. And let me highlight this and bring it down to a reasonable point size, like 18 points or so. And then I'm going to type in Carrera. Okay. And I don't want it to be, because I copied it, it also copied the tracking of -50, but I want this to be normal, 0. Okay, so this is 0. I also want this to be 100% red. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of clean this up. I'm not sure what size this is, so let me check over here to what size I made this. Let me just kind of highlight this, and this was 18 points. Okay, yeah, so I think I remembered that. So this is 18 points as well. Yes, it is. Okay, so now I'm going to grab this and just kind of put it right about there. Tuck this in so it lines up with the left side of this photograph. Okay, the baseline of this type. And okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, 911 Carrera and this chunk of type. The next thing I'm going to do is make the legend here and the bullet points or the I'm sorry, the buttons that will navigate us to various pages. Okay, so I have to draw some rules, some horizontal rules. Now I know that these are 1/4 of an inch spaced apart. Okay, I just know that, so I'm going to do that. And I know that this rule is a 1/4 of a point rule, solid rule in white. Okay, we can see that that rule is in white. So all I have to do is draw one, and then I'll duplicate them off and space them out. Now, because I've locked my background black layer, I really won't be able to move it by mistake. The rule is going to start here, and it's going to end right at the edge of my text box. So I'm going to put a ruler guide there. So now I have the distance of where these rules go. Let me zoom in a bit, and I'm going to get my line tool, and I'm going to click and hold the shift key down and draw a line across. Okay, this line now, right now, is 1 point. I'm going to make it a 1/4 point, and then I'm going to go over here and pull out my outline and make it paper. Okay, so if I deselect, you can see it's a white rule that goes across. I'm going to bring my ruler down, my 2 rulers here. I'm going to go in the corner here, and I'm going to drag this down so it sits right there, and that way I get my 0 here. So now I know where a 1/4 of an inch is. I'm going to bring a ruler guide down and stick it at a 1/4 of an inch. Now that I know that this space is a 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to select my rule, hold the Option key down. We know the Option key duplicates. And then I'm going to drag this down to there. Okay, so now I have 2 white rules. Oops. You can see that. Okay, now all I have to do is drag down 2 more, and I'm done. If I if I select this one, okay, if I select this rule, and I hold the let me make a copy of that and drag this down. You see how it kind of gives me a hint as to the equal space right there. Okay, which is nice in InDesign. So I'm going to draw 1 more down, and now I have 4 ruler guides. I mean rules that go across, and that's what I need. Okay, that basically is 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to back out of this, and let me select all of them and just kind of drag this down. I'm holding the shift key so it goes straight down and not side to side. Okay, so right about there. Okay, the next thing I want to do is create this box of text right here, which is Carrera Home, Carrera 4S, 4S, and 4S, and put that in between these ruler guides. So let me do that. I'm going to go to my text tool here. Don't know why I lost my don't know why I lost my type tab. Let me reset digital publishing here. Yeah, that's what I should have. Don't know why that happened. Okay, anyway, I'm going to grab my text tool, and I'm going to draw a text box. I can draw it really anywhere, so let me draw it off to the side here. And I know that the text is going to be this text is going to be Myriad Pro bold condensed 10/16. Okay, so let me type that in. Myriad Pro bold condensed 10/16, and it's going to be in white paper. Okay, so first thing is going to say, I believe it says Carrera Home, Carrera 4. Okay, so Carrera Home, Carrera (4S) and 4S. And oh, S and 4S, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so there we go. And now I'm going to drag this over and stick it right about there. Let me zoom in a little bit so we can see how that's fitting. And let me kind of drop it down a bit. Okay. So it looks kind of interesting here. If I take this off, we can see that the spacing is a little bit funny in relation to these rules. So what I'm going to do is highlight this and up the leading a little bit. Not the point size, but the leading. Drop this down a little bit. Maybe 17 points of lead is what works. That seems to work pretty good, 17 points of lead. So if I do 17 points of lead, it kind of looks like that. And the distance looks pretty good in between these rules. So we'll leave it at that. Okay. So that represents this text right here. And now we have to do is make the buttons. So let's make the buttons. I am going to zoom in and I'm going to get my rectangle tool and I'm going to hold the shift key down so I create a square button, and I'm going to draw a button about that big. Okay, about the size of the cap height here. I'm going to go over to my swatches palette and make sure that there's no outline and make sure that the fill is white. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to align it right to the edge of these rules. Maybe bring it down a little bit so it lines up with the bottom of the word Carrera. Okay, something like that. And then I'm going to click and hold the Option key down and click and drag down another one. Position that there. Drag another one down. I'm using the up arrow key and down arrow keys to position these. And hold the Option key down and create another one and another one. Okay, so I have all of these buttons. Okay, now we don't have all 6 pages. We're not doing all 6 pages. What we're doing is this page here is the Carrera page, this page that we're working on here. And then the Carrera 4 page is going to be the next page. So this is actually page 2. Oops. This is page 2. This is page 1, the home page, which we're not doing. This is page 2. This is page 3. So page 2 and 3 are the ones we're going to concentrate on. We're going to make the buttons program themselves to page 2 or page 3. Now we're on page 2 right now, so we're going to select this button and we're going to go over to our buttons and forms palette here. We're going to designate it as a button type, and we're going to create an action to go, well actually there's no action because we're here. We're on this page right now. So we're just going to leave it with no action. We're going to create the normal state is going to be red because that's what we want. We want this button to be red. Okay, so I just click red here. There is no rollover state, so we're not rolling over this. You know, it doesn't need to change because this is the page. So this is what it should look like. So this button on this page should just be a button. We'll have to reprogram this later when we get on other pages, but on this page it's just going to be red. Okay, so that's done. And that's all we have to do. We'll come back to this menu in a second when we create the other page. However, Carrera 4 is going to be our next page, page 3. So we need to program this button to go to page 3. Right now we're on page 2. So I'm going to select this button and I'm going to make it a button. And the action now is going to be to go to a page. And what page do we want it to go to? Well, we have 6 pages in our document, but we want it to go to page 3. So I'm going to click page 3. The normal state is going to be white. We want it to be white because we're not on, you know, we're on the Carrera page. And we want the rollover state, however, to be in black and like 50% black. So in other words, when you roll over this button, it's going to change to gray. And that kind of tells you that it's interactive, that it does something. It's going to another page. So the normal state is white, the rollover state is gray. Okay. And it's going to go, I'm sorry here, we have to switch this again to page 3, right? That's the page we want it to go to. All right. Let's test this out now. So we'll go to preview spread. And here's our EPUB preview. Let's open this up. And so when we roll over this, you can see this, it's changing to gray. When I click it, it's going to go to page 3. Right now we're on page 1. In order for this to work in the EPUB preview, I have to click down here the see multiple pages, okay? Right now it's only going to, you know, if I clicked on this, nothing's going to happen. Nothing works. But if I click on this multiple page and then I click play, okay, you can now see that when I click and roll over this and click, it's going to go to page 3. Okay. Now there's nothing on page 3 right now, but this is page 3. So if I go back, okay, this is page 1, page 2, page 3. Okay, if we look at our pages here, we can see, oh, this is on page 1. Page 1 really, this really shouldn't be on page 1. This should be on page 2, but anyway, we'll make this on page 1, and we'll make the next page, we'll put the next car on page 2. Okay, but normally this would be on page 2. In reality, this car would actually be on page 2. Okay, hope that's not confusing you, but we program the buttons and they do work. Okay, the important thing is how to program buttons and how to be able to program them to go to another page. Okay, this is the way this should look. However, we want to make the normal state white. Okay, notice when I click white, when we hit this page, when we're on this page, it looks like this. If I left it on the rollover state, when we hit this page, this would be gray, and that wouldn't make any sense, right? We don't want it to be gray, we want it to be white. So just make sure when you, after you program the rollover, that you go back to normal, because that's the state that you want people to see it in. All right, let's do the animation of this car. And what we're going to do is select the car, and we're going to go to animation, and we're going to create and choose an animation called fly in from left. And we can see that we have this fly in from left animation, but we want to extend the start of this to go outside the page. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this little button here, this motion path, click, and you're going to see that side-to-side arrow. Okay, and when you see that side-to-side arrow, oops, you're going to click and move it out of the page so it starts there. So now when you click on this, you can see the animation. The car is going to actually come in from outside of the page and kind of drive itself in. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to select this text right here. All right, this having a hard time selecting this text because this car is on top of it. So what I'm going to do with this car is I'm going to go up to Object and arrange this Send to Back. And now we can see, we can select this text, okay, because the car is actually behind the text. So we can select the text, and now we're going to go up to Animation, and we're going to program this animation to be a fade in. And the fade in is, the duration is 1 second, and that's good enough. Okay, it doesn't have to be a long fade in, it could just come in right away. Also, the car animation, if we look at it, that duration is 1 second, so it's going to fly in pretty quick. Let's test this. Let's go to our EPUB preview here and select it. And we can see that, yes, that one comes in, then that one comes in. I'll play it again. 1 and 2. Okay, so that's good. Now the last thing that I want to happen is these 3 photos to fade in all together at the same time. So I'm going to go back, close out my EPUB preview, go back to my main screen. I'm going to select this photo. I'm going to select the second photo by holding down the Shift key. That selects multiple objects. Select with the Shift key still held down, I select the third one. Now I've selected all 3 of these. I'm going to go up to Animation, and I'm going to go Fade In. Okay. Now, if I leave it like this, if I go to the EPUB preview, it's going to look like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. See how they animate in one at a time? But what I want is them to animate in all together. So let me close the EPUB preview. I'm going to now go back to a different menu called Timing. Now the Timing panel tells you right here everything that you've programmed to animate and what order it's animating in. Notice how it says Carrera, that's the car, that's going to be the first animation. Then this text, okay, from 98,400. Then these pictures in this order, Carrera, cockpit, and then the seats. Okay, I like the order of this. Now, if you want to ever change the order, just click on this and just move it to a different order. Okay, but I'll leave it at this order. But because these are all separate, it animates separately. So what I'm going to do is select this one and the last one, all three of these, and then see this link right here? I'm going to play them together, and so they're all linked together. So now when this animation happens, all three of these will fade in at the same time. Let's check it out and see. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, they all come in together. Now you may want them all to come in one at a time. That's up to you, but for now, this is kind of the way you do that. All right. Okay, now one thing I forgot to do is make that text gray. So just a little kind of my perfectionist ways of making sure that everything is right. Okay, that's the way that should look. Now do a quick Command S. I should have saved earlier. And so now everything is working, okay? And that's how you build this. I'm gonna just double check this and make sure that everything's working. Again, I can go to my EPUB preview, okay? I know my animations are working. They're coming in correctly. My button, roll over to Carrera 4, click, okay? That's not seeming to go to, oh, because I have to make it multiple pages, right? See, if I click that, nothing happens. Okay, so now let's press play, and now let's try this again. Roll over, turns gray, click, I go to page 2, or page 3. Okay. Actually, what I really should do is make this button this button should really go to page 2 because we made it page 2. So let me get back to buttons and forms, and instead of this button going to page 3, I'm going to make it go to page 2. Okay. So that's done. You don't have to save anything when you program numbers in here. Don't worry that you have to save anything. Okay, so this is done. All right, Command S to save. This page is done, and right now this page is page 1. So now we're going to create the second page, which is the white car, the white Porsche. But we're not going to build everything from scratch. We don't need to build everything from scratch. All we need to do is just simply copy this page. And just to make this not such a terribly long video to upload, I'm going to stop the video here, and I'm going to make a part 2. And part 2 is going to be how to now create the second page quickly and efficiently, since we now have the first page already built. It's going to go much faster, and we're going to use, copy and paste. Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen here and end this video here, and then look for the Porsche demo part 2. Okay, and that will be the other part of this. Okay, so I'm going to sign off for now, and I'll see you in part 2.